My approach to Zion took me through cedar breaks where, at over 10,000 feet, it was cold enough for the snow still to be lying in May. The visitor centre had not even opened, although a path had been dug out to a viewpoint. My next stop was the Kolob Canyons in the northwest corner of Zion National Park, with great views of the area's soaring peaks of red Navajo Sandstone. My stay at Zion was in the little resort of Springdale. Zion is very popular, being an easy driving distance from Las Vegas. This causes parking issues, but fortunately my hotel had its own private spaces and there was a free shuttle to the park.
Welcome to Zion National Park, one of the greatest geologic wonders in the world. Zion Park is a place of outstanding scenery, a sanctuary for wildlife, an oasis in the desert, and a homeland for generations of native people.
A second shuttle service within the park then took me straight to the far end, at a point called Temple of Sinawava. This is not a building, but the name given to the massive amphitheatre created by the towering rocks. A warning that thunderstorms can create flash floods in the narrow valleys. It had been the North Fork of the Virgin River which had created Zion Canyon on its way to join the mighty Colorado River. As with most of the shuttle stops, it was the starting point for a walk, and this one was up the canyon alongside the river. On the way we did see some of the canyon's promised wildlife. The trail is a wheelchair-accessible one, as distinct from several others in the park that require quite a scramble. Features along the trail were the hanging gardens, where water seeping out of the sandstone had allowed plants to flourish, clinging to the side of the cliff faces. Zion is very popular, with over 500,000 visitors every month during the summer, and indeed it is the third most popular site in the whole of the United States. At the end of the paved trail, it was possible to carry on up the actual riverbed through a canyon called the Narrows, but I did not have appropriate footwear for that. It was quite a long way to the next stop downstream called the Big Bend, so I took the shuttle again. The colour of the Navajo Sandstone ranges from deep red to light tan, depending on how much iron oxide it contains. A feature is a white layer at the top, known as the temple cap. At this point, the floodplain of the river was obviously fertile and must have been farmed at one time. I then took a short walk along the riverside to a point called Weeping Rock, and I arrived just as the next shuttle pulled in. The walk from that point was officially described as strenuous. I wouldn't argue with that description, because after the Weeping Rock section the path zigzagged ever higher. This shot with the shuttle bus helps to illustrate the true scale of the canyon walls being over 2,000 feet high. There was a park warden stationed near the top for anyone who might have had trouble with the climb. At the highest point, there was a fine view back to the Big Bend feature of the river. The path into Hidden Canyon looked dangerous, so I ventured no further. There was a good viewpoint for seeing the walkers far below returning to the shuttle stop. Another short shuttle hop took us to a point called the Grotto. This referred to a small stone building, which was the starting point for the walks across the river to the Kayenta Trail, leading to the upper and lower emerald pools. This trail again zigzagged up, sometimes with a smooth surface and sometimes involving clambering over rocks. As we climbed higher, the views down to the Virgin River opened up. I did see occasional wildflowers, but there was one section of the trail with so many flowering cacti that I had to wonder if some of them had been planted, but they were certainly flourishing. Gaining entry to the upper Emerald Pool involved a bit of a scramble over boulders and then through a narrow one-way passage. The pool was situated in a shady, restful spot. It required another scramble when it came to getting back out again. The lower Emerald Pool was perhaps the more interesting area, with water cascading over a lip and down the cliff. The exit, though, required a quick sprint to avoid getting soaked. The walk finally returned me back to the riverside, just in time to catch a grazing mule deer. The main trees that grow along the banks of the Virgin River are Fremont cottonwoods. The fresh green shoots by the riverbank must be the favourite snack for the mule deer. I then reached Zion Lodge, which provides the only hotel accommodation actually in the park. My shuttle from there was down to the 3 peaks, called the Court of the Patriarchs. They are from left to right named Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, with the Abraham Peak being the highest, at 6,890 feet. I was then within walking distance of Springdale, so I enjoyed taking the riverside pathway for my return trip. Although cars were banned from the park in the summer, cycling was allowed. When I reached the visitor centre car park, there was another mule deer wandering around as if he owned the place. Since I had arrived into Zion from the west, I had missed out on going along the impressive Zion-Mount Carmel highway, which involves going through a mile-long tunnel. The tunnel is narrow and poorly lit, and so, for safety reasons, the rangers control the traffic to go through in convoys in alternate directions. Once through, the rock formations on the far side were very different from the main park. The rock is still Navajo Sandstone, but it is paler with less iron oxide. Its sand dunes origin is more recognizable. A unique feature was the checkerboard mesa with its cross-hatching. The horizontal lines were originally formed in the wind-blown sand dunes, but the vertical cracks were created much later after the rock had turned brittle. Looking at the swirls in the rock, you can almost sense the wind blowing around the original dunes. Having viewed that last section of the park, it was time for me to head back to Las Vegas to continue my US tour.